Okay, great. Can you hear me? Fine. Just want to test.
Yes, you're coming through loud and clear.
Excellent. Okay, well, welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored to be a speaker. I originally had intended to speak out on the site and be physically present. And of course, we've since had this coronavirus pandemic, which is now resulting in all of us being together in a remote, distant environment. And so it's a pleasure to see over 100 people online. It's kind of neat. It's really a cool way to have a conversation with you all. I like being in presence. I don't like to be separate, but I'll do my very best today to share some information. And you saw the slide deck from the Admiral, which was very impressive, his video around Hurricane Harvey. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the electric grid that serves the greater Houston area and how the resiliency of our grid has enabled us to ride through the big event called Hurricane Harvey. I also led Hurricane Ike back in '08. And so we've been through two once-in-a-100-year type events in 10 years. And then most recent, now we're in this pandemic event, which is probably just as big an impact in our economy and in our businesses as hurricanes have been in the past. So these all bring different dimensions of recovery and resiliency. And so hopefully I can share a little bit of our experiences in this brief talk with you all this afternoon. So if you'll move to the next slide, I'll try to allow you to handle the screen, and we'll move through this as we can.
Just one quick thing, Kenny. I don't know if you're able to adjust your camera. If you can, we're just seeing the top of your head at the moment.
Yeah, I wish I knew how to do that.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
I could try. Nope.
Don't worry about it.
It is what it is. It's
okay.
Where it grows over time. So, okay, we'll go ahead and move on over to another slide.
Sure.
We'll get into the introduction right here. So just real briefly, who is CenterPoint Energy? We are a regulated utility, electric utility and a gas utility. Pretty large footprint. Everything in the blue area is how we are regulated. Most of this geographical areas are in the gas business. We're a gas distribution company serving close to 5 million gas customers in 8 states. I am responsible for the Red Star area for the electric utility. We serve the greater Houston area. It's a gigantic infrastructure that serves close to 19,000 megawatts of electric load in the summer peak. And it's about 26% or so of the total load in the state of Texas, which is managed by ERCOT. And I have been on the board of ERCOT for the last 4 years and very familiar with the ERCOT competitive market and our role to serve the Texas market. We're a small service territory with a gigantic load. We serve 2.5 million electric customers. What I do is I own the infrastructure. I no longer have the supply or the retail, but I own the delivery. And we are responsible for delivering electricity to our customers, obviously 24/7 in a very reliable fashion. And so today we're going to stay focused on the electric utility and how we serve the electric utility in the greater Houston area. So next slide. Okay, we're going to start with the video. I think you saw the 2 videos earlier. This is a very short video that gives you just a high-level summary of the impact of Hurricane Harvey to our utility just 3 years ago. Go ahead.
CenterPoint Energy, always there.
Thank you for showing that video. And I always enjoy that video. It's very short, very brief, but the purpose behind that video is while we own the power lines that deliver electricity from other parts of Texas into the greater Houston region, what's really most important about our company is we are a group of employees who are very experienced, well-trained. We work safely. We're dedicated. We're very loyal. We live in the communities that we serve, and we take ownership, we take pride, and you see it in those faces. Our employees are, they're boots on the ground. They are essential employees dedicated to the infrastructure that serves the greater Houston area. All of the loads, the big industrial loads, all the big commercial loads, our residential loads, we serve them all, and we do it with great pride. And so we're always ready. This slide here just kind of shows you our preparation. We prepare. Every year we prepare for the worst case hurricane, Category 5. We always set our minds around being prepared for worst case. If we're prepared for the worst case, we can handle every case. When you look at a case like Hurricane Harvey, we have smaller versions of Hurricane Harvey, every year, smaller events where we're well trained, well prepared. We use every event, thunderstorm related, flood related. We use every event as a lesson, as an opportunity to learn more about our processes, our technology, and our people. And so throughout the year, we prepare ourselves for the big event, but day in and day out, we're working on the smaller activities that we have to respond to. We're trained in incident command, just as you saw from the United States Coast Guard. Our employees are trained in the same language, the same processes, the same reporting. We want to be consistent and integrated with our governmental officials. When we train each year, we do a test about in May of every year in preparation for hurricane season. But we're already going through that right now. We're in a high activity alert right now with the pandemic, and we're well prepared. We're in this what we call emergency operation planning right now as we go through the event for the coronavirus. And so we're as prepared today as we ever are. And as we go through our preparations, we also communicate with our neighboring utilities. When we get a big event, we depend on one another. We go help our other utilities, and they help us. And so we're constantly in contact with one another, and we're ready. We're always ready to prepare a response when called upon based on Mother Nature. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, but just to highlight the importance of our preparations throughout the year. So when we go back in time and we look at Hurricane Harvey, a record-breaking storm, these are just some of the highlights, big picture of the event. As you heard earlier, it came and went, it came and went, it came by and then it went, and it was a slow-moving, high-impact event storm. While the 130-mile-an-hour winds did not affect the greater Houston area like Hurricane Ike, it did affect the Corpus Christi area and areas just south of Houston. So the wind was a big deal, but more of a big deal in our area was the rain. Depending on where you were, where your customer load is, anywhere from 45 to 55 inches of rain what were recorded for Hurricane Harvey. And so the rain, it tested our creeks, it tested our bayous, it tested our rivers. And trust me, we know inside out where our creeks are, we know inside out where our rivers are, we know inside out where our bayous are. We understand how they affect our models and how they affect our operations in real time. This event had just a tremendous amount of lightning. Lightning creates outages in our service territory. And so we have to respond to the real-time impacts associated with lightning. And that's part of what we did with Hurricane Harvey. If you remember Harvey, it started on a Thursday evening into a Friday, and it rained all day Thursday, all day Friday. It rained all day Saturday. It rained all day Sunday. It rained all day Monday. I remember the first sunshine on a Tuesday afternoon outside of our emergency operations center, and that sun didn't last real long, but we had a little celebration at that point in time as we saw, the goodness of the after effects of Hurricane Harvey. So that was a positive outcome. Let's move to the next slide. Just showing you a couple pictures. Just you saw in the earlier videos, we have tons and tons of pictures. These are taken by our our technology, and you can see that this is a transmission right away, and you see just a couple pictures here of how much water was affecting our industrial complexes across Baytown. We serve all of Baytown, all the way to Trinity Bay. And then lastly here, this is one of our staging sites, and this is an important picture because in a major event, we bring in mutual assistance crews. These are not my crews. These are other utilities, our neighbors. We live for one another. We help one another, and what they do is they run their own armies, and they are well organized. They're safely trained, and we just prepare them to come into our service territory, what to expect, and then give them work. We give them material. We give them work. We give them hotels. We give them transportation. We give them food, and we try to give them some happiness. We try to make them feel comfortable being in our service area. We call them guests. We try to treat them like guests. And so this is 1 out of 6 staging sites. This Reed Road is just south of NRG. It's a couple, maybe about 10 miles off of 288 Reed Road. It's one of our critical staging sites that we use every storm event. Next slide. So just to put this in perspective, we've been working hard for many years on our intelligent grid. It started many years ago, back in 2006, 2007, 2008. We've made strategic investments in smart metering, one of the first utilities in America to put in the smart metering technology. We put in an advanced distribution management system so we could use that metering data and manage our grid in real time with real-time situational analytics. We've built an intelligent grid that allows us to remotely manage and restore power without the work of our linemen, so it reduces time and allows them to be more efficient and focused on where the trouble really occurs. And then we added a customer vision system that allows us to communicate to our customers in real time. When situations occur, we can then translate those situations into a message that's meaningful to our customers, which is very valuable to you and to us. And so you can see just some analytical information in here. The hurricane created an opportunity for us to use our intelligent grid. We were able to save minutes, 41 million outage minutes remotely through the management of our transmission and distribution system. So that what that meant is over 100,000, 140,000 customers got their power back on without any real field work, which is very important to us. Secondly, we were able to read our meters. In the old days, we would use our physical drive out and read meters manually. You couldn't do that with Hurricane Harvey because the roads were flooded. Well, now all of our meters are telemetered in real time. We can read our meters in real time. We were able to transact to the market. We were able to connect meters, disconnect meters, do everything we would normally do. We did it in real time, even during an event as big as Hurricane Harvey. So from a metering management perspective, it really had minimal impact to our competitive market, which is a very big deal. And then lastly, we are using real-time analytics. I'll touch a little bit more about this in a minute, which aided us in our operations around where was our trouble, where do we need to move our crews, how do we restore service in a much more efficient and safe manner to enable decision-making in real time to really improve our performance and improve our output. Next slide. So the impact of grid modernization, this is a theme that we as a utility have been committed to for over 10 years now. Hurricane Harvey brought a new dimension of technology, which is drones. Think of this 3 years ago when the drone was more of a science project or a tool for our children to play with in the backyards. We were able to get access to some very sophisticated drones back in that day and use them. We hired third parties who are much better at using them than ourselves. And we put them out on our streets, and they gave us situational awareness that we could not get on our own. It brought real-time status of damages to our hub and allowed us to make faster decisions on the work that needed to be completed that could be done in the office and then shipped back out through mobile data, as you see in here. And our crews were mobilely being managed through our mobile data systems, which basically enabled the technology to lead us, to really provide great visibility and great operational capabilities. And it made our crews much more efficient in real time. In addition to that, you see on the third bullet here, we have a system that we use today. It's called Power Alert. It's a Power Alert system that over 1 million of our customers a day, when their power goes out, we know it because the meter sends us a signal in real time. We can send that message to our customer in real time, and we can tell you today that your power is out without you even being at home. And we do that to you in a page or in a digital communication on your cell phone. We use that technology to keep our communities informed, to keep them aware of our situations, to give them better understanding of what we're doing and where we're going. And it provided a great tool for communications. I point out Memorial Sub. This was a big deal. I don't have any of the pictures here, but that's the parking lot. We have mobile subs. So think of our service area as 250 substations that are very important to providing reliable infrastructure to serve our 2.5 million customers. When the Memorial Substation out in the Memorial area went underwater for the first time in 50 years, we were able to bring in a mobile sub and hook it up with temporary transmission, temporary distribution, get all those customers back in power within 3 to 4 days, and keep the sub operating till we rebuilt the substation over several months. So just a good example of how we were able to work in real time. Next slide. So I'm going to give you just some fast facts, just some fun facts about the storm. I know it's been a few years and probably a while since people remember everything in here, but we have electrical distribution circuits. We lost probably 15% of our circuits during Hurricane Harvey. Hurricane Ike, we lost 90% of our circuits. Almost the entire service area was dark. Harvey was not quite as bad. The wind wasn't as bad in the Houston area. It was a flood event, not a wind event. We had 8 substations out of water and 9 substations that we couldn't access. So that was a big deal. We brought in 2,200 employees and had a mutual assistance support from 7 states. And the impact in terms of outages was equivalent to 2.5 to 3 years of just normal weather. So it was a big event. It cost enough outages that it was equal to about 2.5 years of normal reliability on our grid. So it was a big event. It was a complicated event, but our technology really made a big difference in helping us get through it. Next slide. Here's again a picture of the staging site that you saw earlier. 352,000 hours there, 85 crew spokespersons. We serve meals. We bring in third parties who feed our crews for breakfast, hot meal for breakfast, hot meal for dinner. We pack them lunches for the middle of the day, and then we send them all home in hotels. We wash their clothes every night. We're like a small city. We take care of health. We take care of wellness. We take care of happiness, and we try to serve them as guests to our cities because they are very important to our response. Next slide. 1.27 million customers were impacted by Harvey in some way. We had a lot of unique equipment on this thing. You can see that the boats, we use boats instead of trucks in a lot of areas. We use airboats, we use drones, we use amphibious vehicles. And since Harvey, we bought some even better equipment that allows us to work in flooded areas. So we're even better prepared today for these types of technologies than we were back in Hurricane Harvey. Next slide. So I'm going to spend just a minute talking about communications. Again, the most important part of how we perform is how we communicate. And social media was a new thing back in Hurricane Harvey, and we took advantage of it. We went all in, and we notified our customers through our Power Alert services. We notified customers through Facebook, through tweets, through our website. It was a big deal, and it worked extremely well. Now, today, people are much more familiar with social media. So all these things that we did well there, it's expected today. It's anticipated. We better deliver on the communication front. Next slide. And this was the response. It was really positive. We were very, very impressed and very pleased with the response that our customers gave us through our communications, through the hard work of our crews out in the field, through our connectivity, through our real-time communications with our folks, through technology and person-to-person. Great feedback, and really a very, very valuable opportunity to work with our customers. Next slide. So after the storm, I'm going to be real brief here because I'd like to give you all time for questions and get to our next speaker. But we've worked hard on strengthening our grid in 4 major areas. We'll go to the next slide. The first area is in transmission. We Hardening is important to us. And when I say hardening, we want to be wind resilient. And we look at wind from the coast of Galveston all the way to Conroe to the north of our service territory. And we build our infrastructure to withstand the power of a Category 5 hurricane. It's really important to us. And in Hurricane Ike, we had zero or very minimal damage to any of our newer infrastructure. And so it's been tested. We can't get a better test than a storm like Hurricane Ike. And we continue to work hard to replace older wooden pole structures with high wind resistant steel and concrete infrastructure with anti-cascading designs, anti-galloping designs, and modern transmission construction. Next slide. In Substation, it's about protecting the sub. We build walls to control against floods. We build fences to control against physical threat. And we isolate the heavy oil-contained equipment from fire. As you can see, fires can create big problems. And so we are fire resistant the best we can. We're water resistant the best we can. We have surveillance to protect against physical. And we have all this information that comes back real time to our central control system. Next slide. Distribution, we look at the infrastructure from, we can't build everything the same, but we look at it from Galveston all the way to the northern ends of our service territory. We try to select strategically where we put our intelligent grid switches, how we think about hardening. We can't just put everything everywhere. We try to do it in a systematic way. We try to put as much infrastructure support and strength in our system as we can. And then on top of that, we layer visible data that allows us to see things in real time so that we can be highly responsive to Mother Nature. Next slide. A lot of our service area is feeding very important Texas Medical Center, downtown Houston, the airport. And so we want to protect that equipment uniquely to serve the medical center, to serve our airport, to serve a lot of our critical loads. So that's where the resiliency comes in, is how well we're able to meet the needs of our critical loads in a much closer format. Next slide. Redundancy, this picture you can see on the far right is a building. It's kind of hard to see. It's down out at Spring Branch. We built that building 4 years ago, and it has the same functionality as our central control center. This is a FERC NERC requirement, and if something happens to our transmission control center in real time, we can move all of our control dispatch controllers to the secondary system and operate the entire grid with the same level of performance and the same level of functionality, and they work live. And so we constantly have that level of backup built into our grid today. So all of our substations can meter data in real time to both locations, and our systems are operated in real time at both locations. This is a very important part of our resiliency that works extremely well to monitor and watch and control our grid. Next slide. We have mobility. We have command centers now, so we don't need to work in offices. In fact, right now, sitting here today, I have 3,500 employees, almost 4,000 employees. Of course, they're all across the states. We have several thousand here in Houston that are working remotely because of the pandemic event. We can mobile manage our crews. We can mobile manage our office folks. We can move where we need to serve the needs of our customers and serve the needs of our outside customers that are utilities in our neighboring areas. Next slide. And then this is kind of, in wrapping it all up, this is just after action. We work very hard with our national and our state industries. We collaborate. We try to learn from one another. We're always trying to build ourselves and make ourselves better for the next event. Next slide. And that concludes the presentation, and we will take questions. And if you have anything else you'd like to talk to me about away from the meeting, more than happy to do that through email or through phone calls. Thank you for your time.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kenny. Much appreciated. And I know in the talk that I gave, I talked about the need for a resilient infrastructure. So when we're dealing with industry, the ability of the infrastructure to respond quickly and to get things back up and running fast is clearly a key factor, not just for production, as I said, but also for energy efficiency. And I think what you told us is some great things that you guys did during Hurricane Harvey to make sure that that's indeed what happened. So thank you for that, and thanks for the talk. There are several questions I've received while you've been talking. First one, I'm assuming is going to be fairly straightforward for you, and simply a definition. Several times in your talk there, you talked about SAIDI, SAIDI, and the question is, what is that?
Yeah, it's a reliability metrics. It's the industry standard, and it basically means for the average customer in the industry, there's about 100 minutes per year of outage time. And that's about the average in our industry. If you're in an area where you don't have trees and you don't have lightning, like San Diego, California, your average will be much lower than that. If you're in an area where you're in a jungle and you have a lot of lightning and you have a lot of things like Houston, Texas, then your average reliability will be different. But it's a centralized metric that for reliability purposes that we can standardly report on in terms of the performance of our grid based on the average customer and the average outage minutes per customer.
Okay, great. I'll come back. There's a second part to that question, but I'll jump ahead to the next one that I have here. You mentioned that 8 or 9 substations were inoperable due to being underwater during Harvey. First part of the question, have these substations since been elevated to harden from subsequent heavy flooding events? Well, just leave it there. Again, this question's got a second part, which I'll come back to in a minute if we have time.
Yeah, and the answer is yes. These substations are located very close to our bayous, and consequently, we recognize the threat. And what we have done, and I gave you that one example out at Memorial, we kept that mobile substation energized for months, and we re-energized the new substation. What we've done is we not mobilely, but we physically lift all of the control equipment, all the control gear that is digitally sensitive to water, and we've elevated it above the 15-foot plane that occurred in this event, and even higher than that. So we've built a higher stage for future, which we think is very, very fundamentally important. And we're taking that same template, that same idea across all of our other substations, and making sure that we have that longer term capability to withstand rising water in an event as big as Harvey.
I guess that leads into the second part of the question, which says, what are CenterPoint's lessons learned from Harvey? It sounds like there's one right there. Anything else you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, I think it's really the technology. We are a technology-centric world today, and we need to test it. We need to keep testing it. We need to learn how well it takes the pounding of testing, the physical pounding of our natural environments. And so we have discovered over the course of Hurricane Ike and Hurricane Harvey that our technology is solid, it's strong, it's resilient, it's robust, and it provides us a leading advantage in being able to restore services much more efficiently and much safer today than we ever could have done if you go back 10, 15, 20, or 30 years.
Okay, very good. And one more question here. What wind speed are transmission line and overhead power lines able to withstand? And what about microbursts and hurricanes?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've actually had microbursts. Microburst occurred. I was watching an Nationals game back in April 3 or 4 years ago, and I got a call at 8 p.m. that out in Sealy, Texas, we had a microburst. If you understand what that is, it's the opposite of a tornado. And it comes down, and instead of sucking everything in, it pushes everything out, and it literally just pushed this trail of wind and damaged everything in its route, and it went back up into the atmosphere. And so we had hundreds of poles down. We had damaged transmission, and we went to work in a Walmart parking lot. We took all of our mobile equipment out there, and then within about 24 hours, 48 hours max, we're back to normal in that event. There's nothing that can withstand a tornadic event of a major magnitude, just because of the unique damages that creates. However, our transmission system is built to withstand hurricane, 150-mile-an-hour winds, and was well tested during Ike. Ike was 110, but what was unique about Ike, 110-mile-an-hour wind, is it stayed for 12 hours. And so imagine, you're sitting there and you're taking that pounding for 10 hours. So it's 110-mile-an-hour wind, but it's for 10 hours. So it was a significant thrust and a significant impact. And our systems withstood. We're very proud that it withstood the effects of that big event. Now, when you bring it down to distribution, where you have smaller poles, they're too close to trees. And so it's not how well does the wood poles handle in the wind, it's how much damage do the trees cause our infrastructure. In Ike, we had trees falling over because of the heaviness of the trees, the big oak trees, and the wind, and they would fall into our power lines, which takes a lot of work to restore services. And so the biggest challenge we ever have, I saw that in one of the questions, is big trees causing damages to our infrastructure.
Yeah, and in fact, that was the last question that I had on the list here. And so it did say, what was the biggest challenge for CenterPoint during Harvey and how was it handled? So beyond dealing with trees, is there anything else you want to talk about?
It's just really the quickness of evaluating your system. You have to do a full evaluation of your system, and you got to collect that data, and you got to bring that data back in. And then you got to go restore your emergency services. And so there's a time lag before you really can start helping your customers. And the more that we can reduce that lag to get your critical loads back on faster, get your data in quicker, is the biggest challenge we always have. And then being able to convert that into productive crews who can do the bigger work to restore larger amounts of power. That's our biggest responsibility.
Very good. Thank you so much, Kenny. Appreciate that great talk.
You are welcome.